I think, have lost that ability to be able to decide on a technical matter. So, if you've been in marketing for 10, 15 years, right? 15 years when social media first came in, the tools that existed in social media in those days are long gone, right? But
Hello and welcome aboard. Get ready for a new episode here at the Virtual Frontier. Great you have found a way back to the show. And if you just joined recently, do you a favor and hit the subscribe button right away so you never miss new episodes. Today I'm very glad to have Anwar Yombab-Hoy as my guest. Anwar is a distinguished speaker, author of the book 9 Entrepreneurisms, Management Practice for VUCA World, and a partner at 21cc Education in Malaysia. Anwar and I are going to talk about entrepreneurship, innovation, and leadership in the VUCA world. As we do live somehow in such times, I felt that Anwar would be a great person to talk to. Find out how companies can become hubs for entrepreneurs and how the 9 entrepreneurisms can help you to not only survive, rather than rise to new frontiers. See you in just a moment on the other side. So, hello Anwar, welcome to the Virtual Frontier. I'm really happy to have you on the show. Our topic today is talking about entrepreneurship, innovation, and maybe all this a little bit in the retrospective of living in a world that is constantly changing. Many of them call it the VUCA world. And yeah, as we could see in the last 2 years right now, there's a lot of uncertainty into the game. And so I want to talk a little bit today with you about all those topics. But before we start, Anwar, maybe you would like to introduce yourself to our audience. Who's Anwar? What you're doing? From where you're coming, and what makes Anwar?
Sure. Thanks, Daniel. I live in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, which is a city. And these days, it becomes less relevant where one lives because, everything is happening virtually. My passion is really about entrepreneurial behavior, entrepreneurial practices, and not just about starting a business. So I think there is a big opportunity for corporate leaders, for CEOs, for managers in organizations to adopt entrepreneurial practices. And that's the subject that I speak on. And essentially, that's what I do. I speak about how your organization can tap into the entrepreneurial spirit that exists in all of us.
Yeah. Before we dive into the topic of entrepreneurship, and I would like to ask you, and I do it recently with all my guests, what has probably changed in your way, how you work, or probably what has changed in the area you work during the last 2 years, how you have maybe adapted, what struggles you confronted. So just to get an idea about how everyone is tackling
Sure.
the situation they're confronted with.
I mean, Daniel, everybody had, we went into lockdown on the 18th of March, 2020. So that was the first lockdown. And, we lived in the lockdown for over a year and a half. And like everybody else, you struggle with how do you develop a relationship with somebody? How do you keep a relationship with somebody? How do you work when you can't physically see somebody, and you can't feel, you can't get that emotion? And we all adapted to that virtual way of working. We all became Zoom experts and, learned lots of new software and put up virtual backgrounds and did talks and training virtually. And we adapted with new tools. And I think for me, it was a nice learning experience, right? So you learn something new, and it ties into being entrepreneurial because entrepreneurs have to constantly learn, constantly evolve. And organizations have to do the same. So there were painful moments. I mean, there were many times when, it didn't make sense to get up and do something. And, you sort of, when you had time, like everybody else, you sort of worried about, am I relevant? And I'm sure that went through everybody's mind, right? In the office, when you have time, you chat to somebody, you have a coffee, you go downstairs, you have a smoke, you do something, right? So having time in an office environment doesn't seem to have the same mental pressure or implication as when you have time at home. And so when you have time at home and you're working from home, this sort of doubt comes in that, am I relevant? Do I need to do more? Do I need to be more visible? Do I need to be more audible, etc.? And so those pressures come in at home, which you don't normally see in the office. So I think that's something that has impacted everybody, And a lot of people who stayed at home, find out that their task that they were supposed to do in the office wasn't that relevant. And so they stayed at home and had nothing to do. That's terrible.
Yeah, for sure. That brings me also to my next question. What do you think, or what do we need to understand more how the future of work is evolving? Maybe also already in this context and as it is an influence.
Sure. No, I talk about 3 waves of change in my keynotes, and one is the way that learning has changed, and the second is how work has changed, and the third is how investing has changed. And if we just focus, Daniel, for a minute on how work has changed because now companies really need to understand what each individual does. They need to understand their output, okay? Because in the past, people got paid for being in the office. So in the past, in the world before, you got paid for being there. Because when everybody was there and stuff got done, people were happy that it was productive. Now you are not visible. And so companies are struggling with, how do I measure what is your output, Daniel? What are you doing? What are you creating? Why am I paying you, right? So the struggle comes on both sides. The struggle comes for companies to try and recognize what is your output so that I can compensate you, because I can no longer compensate you based on the whole group and everybody turning up to work, right? So the whole compensation structure, we've moved from work for hours to work for output, right? And if you work for output, so people are going to more and more work for output, and that's essentially what the gig economy is, right? So you produce something and you get paid for what you produce, and it doesn't really matter whether you live down the road in a different city in a different time zone, right? So work is going to be very much that distributed in what I call an unboxed world. You can live anywhere and you can hire anybody, and they will work the hours that they want to work as long as they give you the output. And the implications are actually enormous, because how do you recruit people? How do you interview people? We're so used to, he has a degree, he has this, and it ties out to the first point about learning, right? Who cares whether you have a degree, right? So how you work is going to change how people hire you, right? Do HR managers know to hire people, right? You don't have to work in the same town. You don't have to work in the same city. And then what's going to happen if that means that you've got to manage this distributed workforce, which does create problems. But the plus is that in each of these distributed centers where you have people working, the people that work are going to be passionate. So you are going to tap into people who are passionate anywhere in the world. And many companies are already doing that. I was talking to a company the other day in the cosmetics business. One founder sits in Hong Kong, one sits in Canada. The product is sold in North America. The packaging is designed in Paris. The packaging is produced in Shenzhen. The formula is in Toronto. And if you are a company that is restricted to only hiring from down the street or down the city, you're at a big disadvantage.
Yep.
One is because you can't reach all these people. And the second is, all these people that work for you are extremely qualified and passionate. because they're doing the stuff that they love doing. So
and probably also the influence that they get from their environment, right? So someone from Toronto maybe wouldn't end up having the same idea in the same way that the person in Shenzhen or in Hong Kong has, right?
Exactly.
Different mindset, different culture.
And the implications are on compensation, on hiring, but the implications are also on taxation, right? Whose responsibility is it then to collect the tax, right? If I'm paying somebody as a gig worker or contract worker outside my country or my county, are they paying the tax there? We don't know. So, what's going to happen to tax collection? And that's why it's so critical for tax collection to move to move to a consumption tax, right? Because you can't. And then so whose responsibility is it to provide employment? And if it's the local council, the government, etc., what can they really do in this unboxed world? I mean, honestly, what can they really do, right? So everybody is going to be able to work from anywhere for anybody.
Yeah.
That's going to create pressures. The good people will obviously then sit very far ahead of the people who are not so good. What do you do with those people? Do you abandon them? So it raises big questions. So the future of work is something that nobody has an answer, but we can see the pattern forming, right? And as the wise people say, it doesn't matter whether it happens in 2 years' time or 5 years' time, but is it happening faster than you think or slower than you think? If it's happening faster than you think, it's going to come at you at some point. And so people need to start thinking about that, right? Organizations need to start thinking about that. Governments need to start thinking about that.
You just mentioned this term, and I think I remembered seeing you also with this box. What do you?
I call it the unboxed world.
The unboxed world. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so
I love this.
So we used to live in this boxed world, right? So everything is defined by the box, right? So how much you can learn. You go to university, it's set, structured, finished. There's a course, you do it, that's it. In the unboxed world, there's no limit to how much you can learn. You just keep learning and learning and learning. And so why constrain yourself to learning? And the same with work, right? Why do you have to everybody come to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and leave at 5 o'clock and work 5 days a week? It's a boxed world because you're so used to box. So an unboxed world, you can work anytime you want as long as you produce the output. And so we need to start thinking in this new way, that there are no physical limitations. And look at learning, right? Do you really need to go to university for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years and come out and then you find that you're doing something different? So you starve for 3 years and 4 years and you pay all these fees. And so the old model was learn, starve, earn. I mean, that doesn't make sense, right? So the new model is learn, do, earn. Mm-hmm. Do short courses, do something, start doing it, start earning money, right? And as you start doing it earlier and you earn money, you become better. And then you discover, it gives you an opportunity to discover earlier what you really like doing. You don't have to wait for the 3-year, 5-year degree, then get a job, sit in a job for 2 years and realize, hey, I don't like this.
I don't like it after, and then all the money and energy spent already on it.
Yeah. So that's a challenge for universities, right? Are they going to start having more modular courses for some of the disciplines? Do you really need to spend 3 years and 5 years to study marketing or social media or some of those disciplines? Many of those disciplines you really don't need to spend all that time.
No.
And they take you out of the work environment to try and mature you. I mean, what's wrong with maturing you in the work environment?
In the work, yeah.
So we've followed these, and there was logical reason for that, right? So in the boxed world, I send you to university, and you just, as long as you do the curriculum, you get a pass, right? And so everybody is kept within this band. And it was good. It served the purpose, but it no longer serves the purpose because knowledge has become so widely available. You can pursue it at your own pace. Why do you want to be constrained? I foresee universities are going to be disrupted. And employers are no longer going to ask about, hey, Daniel, can you please show me a copy of your degree? Who cares? Right? It's going to be, hey, Daniel, come on, can I have a chat? Let's look at this problem. Tell me what you think about it. How would you solve it? And if I like the way you do it, I hire you. And if you don't work out in 3 months' time, I let you go. Right? So it's, in a way, it's going to be a harsher world. The good will really be able to set themselves different from the not so good. So, like everything else, the future has good, has bad, has fortunate, has unfortunate. But if you have this entrepreneurial spirit, at least you start out and say, I'm going to learn, I'm going to develop. And that's what entrepreneurs do. I'm going to roll with the punches. Some are not going to knock. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I realized that, I was a pretty lousy entrepreneur when I ran my own business. And I sort of started 2 or 3 startups. None of them have been successful. And that was painful. But I'm an excellent employee because I'm entrepreneurial. So I don't wait for my boss to say, can you do this? Can you do that? If I come up with an idea, I go to him and I start doing things. And the organizations that I've been fortunate to work with have allowed not just myself, but other people to be entrepreneurial. So, I started working in a shipyard in the UK, and that was like the box, right? After a year, I said, I can't take this. And I ended up working in Singapore. And it was unboxed. Lots of competition. We had to upgrade. We continually upgraded. Nobody said to us, I mean, the only thing that somebody came and told us is say that if you're not going to be relevant, then you're going to be out of a job. But other than that, we found new clients, we found new ways of doing things, we upgraded, we developed skills. And this was all about being entrepreneurial.
So why do we need to rethink or reanimate this term of entrepreneurship or being entrepreneurial?
Yeah. We talked about how cycles come around, right? And before we went on air, and every now and then there's a new management concept, right? So the management concept says, empower more people, your people, or have a purpose, have a goal, have KPIs. And I find it's just tiresome listening to all this. Why don't we go back to what was at the source of a business? And the source of a business was an entrepreneur. And if we can start to emulate what entrepreneurs do, which is having a purpose, having a vision, communicating clearly, involving their people, taking risk. If we have all these things in an organization, you don't need all these, silly things that come around, blue ocean, red ocean, the cow and the dog, and this metrics and that metrics and all that. You have to start thinking about, like entrepreneurs, your business is in a continuum. As in any continuum, there are going to be changes, and the environment is going to change because, of course, how you produce changes. What people are interested to buy changes. And so both are changing. They've always been changing, right? And so entrepreneurs get used to this change. They're happy in a VUCA world because that's where opportunities come. And you can see that in the last 2 years with a number of the businesses that have been more entrepreneurial. They've done very well, right? The ones that thought change wasn't going to come, the ones that thought that, we'll get enough notice, got knocked off. The ones that were prepared and took risk, they're the ones that did well.
What do you need are the key elements to be prepared for this constant change that is coming up always?
So the change comes in two areas. As I said, the change comes in how you produce, right? What's your output? What's involved in how you produce it? And the change comes in how people are buying. And you need to watch both of these. Can you make better? Can you make quicker? Can you make more? Can you differentiate? And then you need to see how your customer is evolving, right? And who knows all of this is your people. So if you are close to your customers through your people and you start to experiment, and there's not going to be, this golden moment where everything falls into place, right? It's a fallacy, right? So you keep trying. You try a bit of this, you try a bit of that, you get feedback. And so companies need to learn how to take risks, small risks, try things, right? So risk taking is very important. The second thing is to have a clear reason of why you exist. Because when you have that and you can communicate that to your people, you will drive them further. And NGOs, they know this straight away, right? Why you exist for an NGO, for a charity is very clear. A lot of mid-tier managers and in corporations, they have forgotten why they exist. And sometimes when I talk to these organizations, you have to remind them, well, why do you exist? And not this fancy, my vision, mission, but in simple words, why do you exist? Are your people able to express why you exist? And is it something that's important? So I worked for a budget hotel. When I joined them, they were a bit embarrassed about the fact that it's a budget hotel, right? So you have to rent the towels. You don't pay for air conditioner. You don't get air conditioner. Rooms are small. There's no phone in the room. There's no room service. But there's a reason why we do that, because we want to be fair to our guests. So we don't have a buffet, we don't have a pool, we don't have a gym, because if you have all those facilities, the cost of that is charged to the room, whether you use it or not, right? There's a little green label that says, help save the environment by not putting your towels for a wash. They don't give your money back if you do that, right? So we started to tell people that we're proud to do what we're doing. We build small rooms, we're more environmentally friendly. The air conditioning goes off the moment you come out of the room. That's environmentally friendly. We provide you one set of towels every day because that's environmentally friendly. So there's a purpose, right? And once you imbibe this purpose in your people, they say, hey, that's a good place to work. Tune Hotel makes sense.
Exactly. You touched already the keyword or topic of management, and I'm deeply convinced that management, as we know it, is dead. So how can we, or maybe I'm playing the devil's advocate here, but what comes next when management is dead?
I don't entirely agree that management is dead, but I think that old style hierarchical management is dead, right?
Exactly. And that's where I want to go.
And you see that in football clubs, right? So the old style, I'm the boss, nobody argues with me, everybody does what I say. I mean, that generation passed away ended with Alex Ferguson at Manchester United. And I don't know the German league, but I'm sure in the German league also they had this very dictatorial style of management, which doesn't exist anymore. So managers now need to empower their people, they need to involve their people, right? And in a football team, the strikers need to be better strikers, right? The defenders need to be better defenders. They don't spend their time making the striker a better defender, making the defender a better striker, right? So organizations and people need to understand that everybody has a role. We can't be generalists. And as technology increases and sophistication increases in systems, people in charge, I think, have lost that ability to be able to decide on a technical matter. So, if you've been in marketing for 10, 15 years, right? 15 years when social media first came in, the tools that existed in social media in those days are long gone, right? But if you came through a marketing profile and you did that 12, 15 years ago, and now you're a marketing manager, and you still try to think in the terms of, hey, when I was there, I used this tool, and this is what I did. And you start to get involved in making these type of decisions, you get them wrong. So the today it's far more important for managers to understand, to listen, to decide without that in-depth or technical knowledge. I mean, there are some exceptions. If you're in drug research, it may be different. But in generally, you're talking about for managers, that level of touch and feel that they had with the applications is not relevant anymore. So there's a skill that they need to learn. How do you manage people doing things that you don't know how to do?
That's
right. I mean, look at car racing, right? I mean, they removed refueling, right? So I mean, they keep changing. So if you start to think about how it used to happen in the past, I think you have a problem. So it's like entrepreneurship, management, leadership. They're going to be there forever. It's just that it's going to be done differently, and the skills are evolving. I think the critical takeaway is don't let your past experience or your technical capability cloud the way you make a decision. Because it's changed a lot.
So what we need to do to not just survive in in this VUCA world, rather than really strive in it, and getting like out, in front or ahead in from times.
Take risks, start new products, talk to your people, see what's capable, what's possible, right? Do things differently, see if customers like it, see if customers are willing to pay for it. Because if you don't do that, somebody else out there is going to do it. And by the time you find out, it's going to be too late. So through history or business history, if you look at it, the companies that try to protect their margins, the companies that try to hang on to their business, for as long as possible, have lost it. I mean, we talked earlier about the car business, right? Electric cars were the only means of transport in New York in, I don't know, early 1900s, because electric engines were simple. They started short distances. People, and a lot of women liked electric cars, right? So then the petrol driven cars came in, and then they had the starters for the petrol cars. So that took off. And then when oil was found in early 1900s, they started building petrol stations, and then Ford, of course, came up with the cars. And then the petrol engine became the norm for many, many years. And what did Elon Musk do? He said, electric technology has always been there. Can we revisit it? And very successfully revisited it. And you look at, everybody knows the story of Tesla and the valuation that Tesla is getting now. Whether it makes sense or doesn't make sense is a separate matter. But he completely turned around the paradigm of electric car, right? So why was Tesla successful? Because Elon Musk said, I don't want to sell to middle-aged tree-hugging people. I want to make an electric car that people buy, not because it's electric, because it looks good, goes fast, And that's what he made, a car that looks good and goes fast. Oh, by the way, it's electric.
It's electric.
Big deal, right? Whereas everybody else tried to sell the electric car to fuddy-duddies, Nissan Leaf and all the other hybrid cars to save the environment, etc. Didn't appeal until Elon Musk came along and said, and now everybody has jumped onto the electric car, but the traditional manufacturers got left behind. Because it's not that they didn't have the technology, they didn't think about the battery. And the critical bottleneck today is the battery. And Musk thought about the battery very early on. And that's why he did the deal for the battery plants. Right? So just one decision. I'm going to make cars. I need to make sure the batteries are there.
Isn't it, but also talking about this taking risks and everything? I don't know. If I look at big companies, right? You just mentioned Tesla, which I guess is a positive example there, because they're going full in. Like Elon Musk, I think there were several times in the company histories where they run almost out of money because everything was invested. And I see on the other side, so many big companies, they have stockpiled billions of dollars on their accounts, and this money is not invested. And then you ask, where's the risk taking there?
Exactly.
What you're scared of?
Yeah.
Why this money that you have made over the last couple of years is not already invested already in the future?
Correct.
And making new discoveries, whatever.
So part of the reason is the reward system of the company, and the second reason is that the executives are so used to doing what they're doing, they don't want to think about something new. So they don't want to get into trouble for trying. They don't want to get in trouble for trying something new. And in the car business, that's been the norm, right? And so if you have a public traded company, you can't go to your shareholders, or at least these people think that they can't go to their shareholders and say, we're going to invest X dollars into building electric cars, because the shareholders say, you won't be rewarded, right? And so that's the problem of the society. They could easily have taken a chunk of money and developed the car. They could easily have taken a chunk of money, but they're so used to the existing supply systems. They never thought about the battery. And even if they had thought about everything else, they didn't think about the battery. And you've got all these suppliers, and what are you going to tell your suppliers? I don't need gears anymore. I don't need 80% of the parts that go into the car. So you get put into a box. Exactly what I talked about, put into a box. The box says I can only make petrol-driven cars.
Yeah.
And other people just came along and said, no, I don't live in the box. I live in an unboxed world. I can make a car that makes the most sense. And you see a lot of the German cars producing hybrids. And hybrid's not really an electric car, right? The hybrid is just a little motor that gives you a bit of boost and qualifies you as a hybrid car, so you can get some tax exemption.
Yeah, the green label.
It's not really an electric car, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting to see how, when BMW comes with their fully electric and Mercedes comes with their fully electric, they've lost the high ground. And in branding, the people that set out first and establish the mind share, the high ground, they do well. Everybody else still plays catch up. Because everybody else is going to say, so how do you compare with the Chinese electric car? How do you compare with the Tesla? You're no longer going to be, hey, I'm BMW or I'm Mercedes. Who cares? You ain't nothing in electric.
And I mean, I just saw it yesterday. There's this Chinese car manufacturer. They they will enter right now the European market, and they not even go with charging stations. They where you go and plug in, they just change the completely battery.
Yeah.
You just go in, change the pack, and then you go and
so
drive.
For China, the Chinese have been doing that with scooters for a while, and so it's an idea that evolved, right? On the other hand, you're going to get these contactless chargers now, that induction chargers that are going to be fast charging. So that technology, I don't know where it's going to rest eventually. But the moral high ground of electric car has been lost, by the traditional leaders.
Yeah.
And there's nothing they can do that I can see to get it back, because the executives don't have the risk-taking ability. The market is not going to reward them. And so they just kept getting stuck in the box.
Isn't a great part of that, and I think that goes also into your thinking and your work, that we still have implemented this whole hierarchical management that tells you what to do inside the company at what time.
Correct.
What we already spoken about, right? So how can we get like this old thinking of management out, and like the entrepreneurial spirit more into more minds, or more workers into the company? Because that seems to me that we need to work on the organization and on how the organization thinks and learns in the future. Because if you don't take advantage of that, what we're gonna do?
Daniel, make a good point. And really, what keeps the company in a box, right, is your processes. And the processes in many companies have become so complex because over the years, the accountants have added some element of risk they want to remove. The HR people have added something to remove an element of risk. The legal people have added something to remove legal risk. And you've got these processes upon processes upon processes that most of the organization is actually handcuffed by their processes. And nobody stops to think that, does this process make sense? Right? So you've got a whole layer of people who are managing the process that are not dealing with the customer. They're not dealing with the output. They're not responsible for P&L. They're just responsible for maintaining a process. And you have to think to yourself, what's the relevance of this? I mean, you still have organizations that are translating reports from one file to another file to another file, to present it in a PowerPoint, to present it at a board meeting. I mean, you've got this huge layer of people in organizations, traditional organizations, and it's a problem for them because they don't have a sense of common purpose. Their purpose is just make sure that legal is okay, make sure that accounting is okay, make sure that HR is okay. Who makes sure the company is okay? They don't think that way. And when I worked in the shipyard in the UK, it was a closed shop. And so we had the union that looked after the technical people. We had a union that looked after the plumbers. We had the union that looked after the electricians. We had the union that looked after the steel workers. You couldn't do each other's jobs. You couldn't even talk to each other without going through the top.
All a great stack of little boxes.
Exactly. And what happened? 8 years after I left, it closed down. Because everybody's so busy worrying about their own little box, nobody worried about the company. And so it's difficult. It's difficult because you have to try and reform this, and you have to be able to send a clear message to your people that you're important. We're not going to let you go. But let's rethink about what you're doing. Because if we can't get rid of some of these processes that are hindering us, handicapping us, we're going to become irrelevant. And I call these people custodians of procedure. That's their job. They just make sure that the procedure is followed.
Yeah.
No relevance. It's a major problem.
So just like picking a little bit on that, but how can we really get this entrepreneurial spirit into the minds of the people in maybe in the midterm, long term, seeing into the future of work, where we have left this boxes and think the organization and as something unfolded and or folding all the time, but in different direction, in different ways.
You have to start at the top, and you have to start to look at which processes don't make sense. How can you use technology? And you really want to get rid of everybody that just manages somebody else, who manages somebody else, who manages somebody else, who reports to the somebody else. I mean, you got to start there. You got to start peeling away all these unnecessary layers. You got to start removing them, listening to your people, and give prominence to the people who deal with the customer. Give prominence to people who bring in P&L. Because what tends to happen is that companies become so afraid of taking risk that the people in HR, finance, and legal very often override the operations people. I mean, I feel that because I come from an operating background, and when you deal with the customer, you're always bumping into somebody from HR and somebody from accounting and somebody from legal who says you can't do this. And you're trying to explain to them that this makes perfect sense for the organization. It makes perfect sense for the customer. They still say you can't do this. And who does the boss side with? The boss sides with them. And so if you are an organization and you find that your balance has shifted away from your operating people to your support people, you're in trouble. Because your operating people give you the revenue, not your support people.
That's the point where I think the value chain has to go the other way around. So the circles that are most close to the customers, they will pay, or they will pay to HR or accounting. So they need the HR and whatever other department, which is not a value producing department of the organization, has to prove their own value and serve the outer circles that are really in touch with the customers and producing those values.
And some of the some progressive companies, some MNCs, they've decentralized the HR function. They've put HR people into the business units so that they understand what the business needs. And they can make sure the HR part of it happens. Right? So basically, you've got to change something, and you've got to become more customer focused, more revenue focused, and less obsessed with process. You know, the answer in your organization, if when you ask, can we do it this way? And somebody says no, because we have a process for that. That's the time maybe you've got to think about, this is not the organization for me. Because if you cannot really honestly give an answer without having to say, my mother told me, my father told me, why?
Yeah.
Right? And you see that in personal life, right? In your life, when you went through and somebody gave you that answer when you were younger, you asked the question why, and you expected an answer. And if you got an answer saying, oh, because we've always done it this way, that didn't make sense to you. Now, why in an organization should it make sense to you now? When your personal life, it didn't make sense to you. But if you go into an organization, and that's why I say that, companies want to hire people with entrepreneurial mindset, with the energy, with the passion. But once they hire you, they say, sorry, Daniel, don't bring that stuff in here. Here we just we follow the rules. And these large organizations, how on earth are they going to hire people? They're not going to be able to hire people. They're just not going to be able to hire people. I mean, look at how well Microsoft has come back after Bill Gates' legacy, right? So Steve Ballmer, in my mind, Steve Ballmer felt his job was to protect the Gates legacy. Only sell Windows, only sell prepackaged. And anything that was interfering with that revenue flow, he didn't want to have anything to do with it. What did Satya Nadella come in and do? He said, everything is open. We can do anything. And look at their stock price today. Look at their product range today. I mean, some of it is not great, but he's transformed the organization, right? It's become, he's able to hire people that previously wanted to go to Google or Amazon. Because he's willing to experiment, to try new products. The whole embracing of the internet is happening with Satya Nadella. Right? Ballmer prevented it. Now, I don't know whether Bill Gates told him not to do it or he decided not to do it. Whichever way it happened, it didn't happen in his watch.
No.
And only when he left, they realized, hey, they got a heck of a lot of talent in the organization.
Use it.
Yeah.
And if this would already be my last question for today, but we can keep going and spinning around that. But if you put yourself, whatever, 5-10 years into the future, what will the future of work will look like? Where we are with all the changes that's happening, the patterns that are building up right now. What do you see has evolved in this time frame?
I hope that we will see a lot more mid-sized organizations collaborating to produce products. So I think the world will be a better place if we have more companies rather than less companies. And collaborating and each finding their own area of expertise. Because then the wealth distribution is greater, right? If everybody works for Microsoft and Amazon and Google, then the wealth distribution
gets boring.
Yeah, I mean the wealth distribution is also limited, right? So you want more companies, more people. You want a lot more mid-size entrepreneurial companies, and in a way, it's easier to be entrepreneurial in a mid-sized company, right? Because as your company grows, you worry about risk, and then the custodians of procedure become more important, and the stock market reacts to every decision that the CEO makes. So I think the world would be a better place with a lot of small companies rather than a few large companies.
And you touched also something which I really hope that will happen in the near future, and it's still not really seen, but is this company over the company's borders collaboration. So the collaboration between different companies in different areas, like something really fluid,
Yes.
where companies come together in hubs, whatever, and figure out something, a problem to solve, which they couldn't solve alone, but then they find maybe a new company or organization that is working exactly on that. And like all this possibilities of combination of knowledge in the near future when this borders of this is my
Daniel,
company and we work.
We talked before we came online, but so is this the metaverse?
I don't know. I don't. The metaverse, if we talk about it, could be a form of an hub, right? Or where companies come together in a place, maybe.
Yeah.
Whatever serves to eliminate this border and frontiers.
Yeah, I mean, and as we talk about the future work, as people become more connected, relationships are, and that's what I've said, at the start of the pandemic, that although borders are closed, the relationships are open, right? So all we've done is close physical borders. In actual fact, we've opened up endless borders. So we're having this conversation now.
You in Malaysia, me in Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't need to meet for a coffee first and see whether we got on with each other. We just ping each other and say, hey, let's fix the time, right? So that casualness, that ability to connect with people has been a major plus from the pandemic. It would not have happened without the pandemic. So the pandemic has accelerated our willingness and our ability to talk to anybody anywhere without having the formality of, hey, and it's removed the geographical advantage that some people have, right? So if I needed to have a coffee with you or a lunch with you before having a meeting, I would never be able to do it. But now, nobody expects you drink your coffee, I drink my coffee.
That's the point, yeah. And I already really enjoyed the past 2 years or 2.5 years, let's say. What you just mentioned with this knowledge that is not just bound to some geographical location. There were so many events and meetups before the pandemic. They were just held locally. You never would get in because they held it in Berlin, in New York, in Kuala Lumpur, and this was like knowledge maintained in this location. Probably they make a recording, but it was not like this. And now everything is open. And I attended so many meetings in all the countries in the world, from Australia to New York, Mexico, Berlin. And this was like a real mix and great fountain of knowledge that I discovered during the last 2 years. Because everyone is now online, and we do Zooms and meetings and podcasts.
Cool. Yeah. No, it's been great, Daniel.
Yep. Any closing words or some thought that comes to your mind that you would like to share or give to our audience?
I think about how you as an employee can be entrepreneurial if you're an employee. Don't wait to be asked. Think of things that you can do differently that benefit the company. And if you're a leader, be prepared to answer why you want things done in a certain way. And be prepared to answer why you exist as an organization. Because, we're living through the Great Resignation, right? Lots and lots of people are changing jobs. And changing jobs not because, a lot of people are changing jobs because of the money, but especially in America. But a lot of people are also changing jobs because they want to be respected. They want to work in organizations that treat them fairly. And if you want to hire talent and you are an old world company, it's not about having a latte bar and, pool tables. It's about how you work. If you're not prepared to fundamentally change how you work, how you treat people, you're not going to hire talent.
Yeah. Anwar, thank you very much for your time. It was a wonderful conversation. I hope we can do this sometime in the future again.
I look forward to that.
Have a nice afternoon there.
All right, Daniel. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Back we are for my exciting trip into Anwar's outlook on the future of work and entrepreneurship in the 21st century. To get deeper knowledge about what it takes to make a difference as an entrepreneur in the current times, I encourage you to grab a copy of Anwar's book. Find the link in the show notes below. We hope you found this session helpful and you have now some new tools and insights on how to create a better workplace for the future. What do you have missed in this episode? How can we do better? Let us know in the comments and reviews. And as always, before you leave, hit the subscribe button, give us a thumb up, and share this episode around with your friends and colleagues. Your action helps us to grow this show and keep you informed and updated on trending topics about the future of work. On behalf of the team here at the Virtual Frontier, I want to thank you for listening. So, until the next episode, keep exploring new frontiers.